Good morning. The Senate Finance Committee is in session for voting on our voting list number 12. We'll get started now. Okay.
Good.
David, you're first.
Yeah. Okay, the first bill on your list is Senate Bill 677. This was actually heard yesterday, and it's moving from the House in the posture of the reprint you have in front of you. The bill came in requiring annual audits of all the nursing homes in the state. That was amended out, and I believe the Healthcare Commission came up with compromise language, which is what you see in front of you. And if you go to the very last page of the reprint, the commission shall post on its website a report that includes information regarding each change of ownership at a licensed nursing home. That information has to be reported under bills that were passed last year, so the information is out there, information on the trends and utilization of licensed nursing homes. I believe all this information is readily accessible by the commission, and they have to post this on their website annually. And this bill is, I believe, what does it tell me here on our list? Oh, well, there is a House bill, and I think it's moving in the same posture. It hasn't got here yet.
Okay. What is your pleasure? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? If not, if you're ready to vote, why don't we call the rolls? Well, since there's so few people here.
Senate Bill 677, favorable with amendments. Senator Feldman. Aye. Aye. Senator Benson.
Aye.
Aye. Senator Kramer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Senator Hayes.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Augustine.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Beidle.
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hershey.
Yes.
Yes. Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, the bill passes.
Okay, if you go down the list, actually it's the next bill I'm not on here.
Yeah, you're on.
If you go to the next bill on your list, Senate Bill 700, this again was heard yesterday. It's requires a work group in the Health Department to study workplace violence in healthcare settings. There was two amendments from the sponsor. I didn't do a reprint on this because they strike, at the request, there was testimony to strike an individual who works in a facility that provides healthcare services to individuals with disabilities because they have separate plans on these matters and they didn't want to participate in this work group. And the other amendment adds an additional, I guess you could say it substitutes a representative from the Maryland States Attorneys Association to this work group to study workplace violence in healthcare settings.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, if you're ready for the question, let's all in favor raise our hands. Okay, that's unanimous for those who are here. Okay.
Okay, Senate Bill 708 was held over from yesterday, and it establishes a compliance officer in the Inspector General's office to aid the Inspector General regarding new duties that are assigned that would be assigned to the Inspector General under the bill, including investigating behavior in the department that threatens the public safety and demonstrates negligence, incompetence, and malfeasance. It also will help the Inspector General regarding behavior in the department that threatens public safety. It's the same language, incompetence and malfeasance. And there is if somebody complains to the Inspector General in the bill, this is an amendment added by the sponsor. The Inspector General has to respond to the individual. If they choose not to investigate, the reasons for not proceeding with the investigation, and the intent is for the compliance officer to assist the Inspector General with these functions too. The compliance officer, there was a change to the bill. Instead of being appointed, it says, what does it say here? On page 2 of the reprint, designated, so it allows the Inspector General to get somebody in-house for this position. There was a late-minute amendment offered by the sponsor. There was an audit requirement attached to the bill regarding emergency procurements. That is struck from the bill, so now the bill just deals with the establishment of a compliance officer in the Office of the Inspector General.
All right, can we get a motion? All right, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All right, well, let's call the roll.
Senate Bill 708, favorable with amendment. Senator Feldman?
Aye.
Aye. Senator Benson?
Aye.
Aye. Senator Kramer?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hayes? Yes. Senator Augustine?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Beidle?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hershey?
Yes.
No. Senator Jennings?
No.
No. Madam Chair?
Yes,
Yes. Bill
okay.
passes.
All right, so the bill, that passes. Okay.
The next bill on your list is Senate Bill 824. This is a bill that revises and modifies and increases access to the availability of electronic healthcare planning documents. Specifically, the bill alters the components of advanced direct information sheet prepared by the Maryland Department of Health and requires the sheet to be provided by entities that require the Maryland Healthcare Commission to coordinate the accessibility of electronic advanced planning documents in the state, repeals the requirement that an electronic advanced directive services be established in a certain manner to connect to the state-designated health information exchange, requires healthcare facilities to take certain actions regarding advanced planning documents, requires Medicaid managed care organizations and the carriers to take specified actions that authorize them to contact with an electronic directive service to their participants, and requires the MVA to submit a specified report also regarding their role in getting electronic healthcare directives out there. There's a reprint in front of you, and this bill just passed HGO last night in this same fashion. There were concerns during the hearing from the MIA and some from the Federation of the Blind regarding access to these directives, and there were some other concerns from some of the healthcare facilities. So the amendments, the reprint in front of you addresses these concerns. First, if you go to page 2 of the reprint, because of the bill, throughout the code, it repeals certain sections that don't really matter anymore because of the new requirements in the bill on page 2. If you go to the middle of the page, there's language here designed to make sure that these documents are accessible by the disabled. And so there's changes throughout the bill that reflect that. There's some clarifying changes. Instead of saying state-designated health information exchange, throughout it becomes electronic platform. So there might be other ways to do this other than just the state-designated healthcare exchange. If you go to page 3 of the reprint, 3 of 14, there's a language here that says these provisions don't apply to certain community providers, home health agencies, assisted living facilities, and hospice. So it exempts those folks from some of the requirements in the bill. Some of these changes are all inconsistent with what I just mentioned about going from health benefit exchange and accommodations for the disabled. Let's see, it brings in, again, that there's some repealing of existing language on page 6 of 14 for the Healthcare Commission because of the changes in the bill. A lot of that is all related. And then a lot of these, if you go, there's changes that were made to the insurance article. These are also adjusted or altered with the concerns expressed by the Maryland Insurance Administration. And then if you go further on in the back, you'll see a lot of deleted language. That's because those agencies this bill would not apply to, so that language would make them do stuff regarding electronic health directives. Doesn't apply, so that language is struck from the bill. I think Senator Kramer may have a few more comments on the bill.
I think you covered it exceptionally well. Thank you, David. And just emphasis on the bill's in the exact same posture as it's passed out yesterday night at like 10 o'clock from HGO. So
Move favorable as amended.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
And my thanks to David for having worked on getting this ready for this morning, Madam Chair.
Sure.
The next bill on your list was heard last week, and this has to deal with the password protection law that was established about 8 years ago that says an employer can't access your information that you store in online and internet and email accounts, et cetera. The bill came in saying that this would not apply to law enforcement agencies across the state. Senator Feldman convened a work session yesterday morning at 9 o'clock with the Baltimore City Police and the FOP, and they were charged with coming up with compromise language that would make the FOP happy, as well as allowing law enforcement to do what they have to do to make sure they get the right people working in their agencies and to comply with the consent decree. So you have a reprint of SB 851 in front of you with this compromise language that the FOP is happy with. First, law enforcement agency is defined on page 2 of the reprint. Instead of saying it does not include, they're just defined here for the later purposes in the bill. The bill already establishes, or the law already had certain outs regarding this requirement relating to the banking industry. So what you have in front of you is an additional set of criteria that would apply regarding the use of or access to passwords in electronic medium for police agencies. So if we can go through this quickly, a law enforcement agency may, during the course of a background check, require an applicant to open all the applicant's social media accounts for review by an investigator. This is apparently, if there was testimony, is what they do now. They sit there and they make people open up their accounts so they can look over their shoulder to make sure it's their account, and that the information that's you can see right away doesn't mean this person could be compromised as a police officer. And during this review, the applicant's social media accounts shall be present. The investigator may print sections from the selections from the social media accounts only if the selections to be printed do not contain a username, password, or other means for accessing the personal account or service. Law enforcement agency will be prohibited from keeping or reserving the applicant's username, password, or other means for accessing personal account or service through an electronic communications device, and prohibit an applicant from changing a username, password because of what just happened. So the FOP is okay with this, and it meets the requirements for Baltimore City, so that's what you have in front of you.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, then all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, well, all right, let's call the roll.
Senate Bill 851, favorable with amendments. Senator Feldman? Aye. Aye. Senator Klausmeier?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Benson?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Kramer?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hayes?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Reedy?
No.
No. Senator Augustine?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Vital?
Yes.
Yes. Senator Hershey? No. Senator Jennings? No. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so that's 8-3. Okay.
The next bill is from the new Senator Watson. This was heard on Wednesday. It concerns the establishment of a sickle cell disease registry in the Department of Health. The Department of Health would have to maintain the registry, and you should have a reprint in front of you, which somehow I lost. But, or do you have an amendment? Oh, I'm sorry, okay, there was a little amendment, MedCai suggested in their testimony on the bill, there was no opposition to the bill in establishing this registry. The department didn't even send a letter. But MedCai suggested that this registry be integrated with the state designated health information exchange, so that's what the amendment does. It says that this, in promulgating the regulations to do this, that they should try to integrate it with that data exchange.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Not all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. Okay.
The last bill I have is Senate Bill 926. This was on the list yesterday, but held because the sponsor asked, he was working out some additional language that he got tacked onto the back of the bill. The bill passed the committee last year, and it specifies that the Maryland Apprenticeship and Training Council include members who are Black and Latino, in addition to all the other requirements for these membership. There's an amendment, the first amendment on the reprint you'll see, this is actually from Senator Rosa Pep. It establishes an Apprenticeship 2030 Commission to obviously increase the use of apprenticeships. There's apparently money in the budget to do this. You may have seen an email from Senator Rosa Pep about how much money they've targeted for these purposes. So the whole idea of this commission is to create a blueprint for coming up with a way to increase the use of apprenticeships across the state. It consists of 4 senators, 4 delegates, various administration officials. They have to come up with a report by December 31st, 2023, and then this commission will terminate 6 months later at the end of 2023. There's an additional language attached. The sponsor of the bill was able to work out with B&T this funding for a program in Prince George's County, a nonprofit entity in Largo, to provide workforce development services to at least 2,000 youth. And with the okay of the chairman of Budget and Tax, it specifies that for these next 3 years, they will get $1 million, $1 million, and $1 million for this program in Prince George's County.
All right, we've got a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second. Okay, Senator Vital.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions.
All
One
right.
is this just Prince George's County? Yes. Okay, because, I keep seeing all these senators to commissions, and I don't know how we're going to staff.
Oh, no,
all
the
this.
commission, there's 2 separate things. The
Okay.
commission is a statewide commission. That has nothing to do with the appropriation.
Okay, so now we're talking 4 more senators appointed to a commission.
Yes.
I'd like to know a count of how many senators are going to be appointed in an election year to all these commissions. Thank you.
We'll see what this
Okay,
happens in the
any
House.
other discussion on the motion? All right. All in favor, let's raise our hands. All right, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you.
I just don't, pulling out, I'm voting for that, pulling out money for one county and the other. No, it's not.
Okay.
All right, Senate Bill 335 is the bill that establishes some consumer protections relating to biometric data. And I've got a reprint. This is a reprint that reflects some amendments that the House adopted with a couple of modifications. So first of all, go ahead.
Patrick, can I just weigh in just very quickly before Patrick explains the bill?
Okay.
So, just the bottom line, it's on the voting list, but we didn't have the hearing on this bill, it was a long time ago. And the House did move a bill out of economic matters. So my goal here is, I want Patrick to explain the bill, what the House did, and some modification even to that product. Let's get some issues out on the table. I mean, we obviously have folks interested. At the end of it, Madam Chair, I'll hold the bill and then we'll continue to work on it. But I just want to it's a good opportunity on an important issue to just get it out and get the discussion going. So with that, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So starting with page 1, the House made a violation of the bill a unfair, deceptive, and abusive trade practice under the Consumer Protection Act. I'll show there are different additional places in the bill where this is done, but that is in place. That remedy is in place of the private right of action language that was in the bill is introduced, and some specific monetary penalties for a violation of the act.
So that is stricken.
Yeah, and maybe I can speak more to that directly when we get to that place in the bill. But yes. So what I will flag though for the committee is that the ability for someone to to file an action for actual damages under the Consumer Protection Act is available for a violation of one part of the bill, which is the prohibition on sale. So if there is a violation of that protection in the bill, then an individual would be able to file an action under the Consumer Protection Act for damages, for actual damages. So I will note that for the committee. Just moving on to page 3, there's some changes to definitions. The definition of biometric data is largely the same. It's been streamlined a bit. There's an exemption for information collected, used, or stored for healthcare treatment payment or operations under HIPAA. Moving to page 4, I think there was a definition of personal information that was struck because it's not really relevant in the bill. There's a new definition of consent, and I guess I'll flag that this specifies that consent includes, in the context of employment, a release executed by an employee as a condition of employment. This bill applies to private entities, so just that's where the protections are for this. There's a definition of certain entities that are excluded from the bill, and at the bottom of this reprint on page 4, there's an addition that's not in the House bill, but that Senator Feldman has included in this set of amendments. That was requested. This is at the bottom of page 4 of the reprint. This is E25, and this was requested by Pharma, and it exempts entities that conduct biomedical research. So this would be an entity or affiliate or entity that's conducting research in compliance with the federal policy for the protection of human subjects, the good clinical practice guidelines issued by the International Council for Harmonization, or the U.S. Food and Drug Administration protection of human subjects. So this is an exemption for entities that are engaging in clinical trials and biomedical research, and they maintain that they're already subject to ethical and privacy standards that would require informed consent. Under federal law. So on page 6 of the reprint, there's a definition of sale, and there's one modification here that is in the set of amendments that Senator Feldman has offered for the committee's consideration. The House defines sale as the provision of biometric data for monetary consideration by a private entity or a third party. The additional clause here has been added so that sale would mean the provision of biometric data for monetary or other valuable consideration. This is in response to some concerns that maybe that definition of sale would be too limiting. There might be circumstances where bartering would be done for an exchange of services. And so that addition would potentially close a perceived loophole that some of the advocates for these privacy protections would be looking for. Down below on page 6, this is the section of the bill that deals with the policy for retention and destruction of data. Each private entity would have to adopt this policy, and the date by which this data would need to be destroyed has been pushed back from 1 year to 3 years. That's one change there. And below, we have an exemption from this data destruction requirement for fraud prevention or security purposes. And this is for individuals, if the individual is part of the state voluntary exclusion program. So this is the program for, forgive me, it's not the right term, but problem gamblers that you can voluntarily participate in. And so if you participate in this, the casino has your information, and can limit your entry. And so at the request of some of the casinos, they wanted this exemption. I think there's some question about whether, you know, it could be broader, but it is limited to this state voluntary exclusion program circumstance. Moving to page 8 of the reprint, this is the duty to protect biometric data. And then below that, here's the duty to disclose biometric data on request. Couple things about the House amendments. There are places where sections have been struck, but in fact, they've just been relocated in the bill. And so this is one place where it looks like provisions have been struck from the bill, but they've just been moved. And so this duty to disclose biometric data on request has been relocated and streamlined a bit, and I can just show you where that is when we get to it. Below, in 1440-403, this is the prohibition on sale. So just an entity that collects biometric data may not sell, lease, or trade an individual's biometric data. And this is the provision that would be subject to that ability to file an action for damages under the Consumer Protection Act.
So may I ask a question at this
Sure.
point? Thank you, Madam Chair. So also beyond, I get the issue with the selling and the reasons for that, but I see incorporated within the selling is B2, which reads, a private entity may not charge different prices or rates for goods or services or provide a different level or quality of a good or service to an individual who exercises the individual's rights under this subtitle. Can you explain that, please, Patrick? Because that doesn't have anything to do with what is in the preceding paragraph.
Yeah, so I know, so one thing I'll note about this provision is that this is another example where it has been relocated from another part of the bill. So this actually was present in the bill as introduced. That's one first thing that I would flag. Some concerns have been raised about this provision because it would interfere potentially with loyalty programs. So that's one of the concerns that's been raised.
And I guess also private right of action would also, because of where evidently now it's been relocated, that private right of action that you said is applicable to 14403 would then also apply to this. So you have that double issue of, if you have loyalty programs, they're now pulled in here with a private right of action.
So probably a good time to go to the last page of the reprint on that point, which is the page 12. This is the penalty provision. So that particular right of action is applicable only to subsection A of that section, which is, this is on page 12, 144406B. So this is where the bill provides that an individual who's affected by a violation of that prohibition on sale, which is 144403A, may bring an action against the private entity. So that prohibition on sale is applicable to this one prohibition in A.
Okay,
and it doesn't reference
but
B.
not B.
Correct.
Okay, all right, and what about the issue of, let's just say I'm a Costco member and I get a discount as a member and somebody else who comes in does not, is that affected by B2 over there?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's right. So I mean, it would still be potentially a violation of the Consumer Protection Act if that consent wasn't obtained.
Because of this paragraph.
Because of this paragraph, right.
All right. Can I look to the bill sponsor and inquire? Mr. Bill Sponsor, is this a critical piece of the bill?
Let me just, I try to make this point at the beginning. Nothing's critical here other than I want to get the conversation going.
Correct.
Flush out all the issues, and then, you know, this is exactly why I wanted to use the voting session to flush it out. So that, you flagged an issue and any other issues, let's just get it out there and then we'll
Okay.
hold the bill, so that's.
Okay,
Got it.
Senator
Thank
Reed-
you.
Senator Reedy?
A couple questions. One is I had gotten an amendment ordered that I don't know is necessarily, I want to find out if it's still needed. There was an issue about contractors that are operating as government agents. There was so an amendment I ordered, I just literally ordered it because the idea was brought to me last night because this came on the voting list late, but, so I'm sorry that I don't have it, but it sounds like we're just conversing right now, but it was on page, in the original bill, I think it was on page 2, but with the reprint, the section I think is moved, shoot, I had it, sorry. It was moved to,
Maybe it's page 4. the
yeah,
reprint.
yep, page 4. Private entity does not include a state or local government agency. I think that the amendment would go there to say, or an entity that's acting, it was just a concern that was brought to me. So, I mean, I assume we could make that clear. Yeah.
You know, give it to Patrick and, you know.
And then, I had an email that I saw from, and the concern brought by the retailers, and I don't know if some of what we've been talking about addresses a concern about loyalty programs.
Could be wrong. I see Kaylee out there. It's a loyalty.
That's what you were just, I mean, you were just talking
Yeah.
about loyalty programs, so that's
Yeah.
the same thing, basically, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like a Costco thing would be that, yeah, I got you, okay, I just want to be sure it's all the same thing. I paid full price for it.
Okay, Senator Bidle?
Thank you. My head's kind of spinning with everything that we're working on, but there was a concern from the casinos about this bill. Did you address that? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, on page
Okay.
3, this is actually was inserted on the House side, so I
Okay.
think this is exactly what they were looking for.
So, again, that's back to the one comment, though, is that the exemption from that destruction of data requirement is limited to individuals who participate in the state voluntary exclusion program. That's that program I described. And I think there's some question about whether that's broad enough.
Okay, so
Yeah.
So that's an open question. This is the casino on this one program, question of whether that's pretty narrow. Maybe the casinos were looking for, I don't know the answer. These
other-
were put on in the House, so I'm not sure.
The other was a question from Pam Casemeyer, representing MedCai, because some of the research, medical research, takes longer than 3 years, so.
I've put in, there is an amendment that was not in the House that's in this reprint that
Addresses
deals
that.
with the research stuff. So
Thank you.
because of the new definition of who's covered, the clinical research stuff is sort of out of
Yeah,
now.
well, I saw that and then I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, we have the questions. Okay. Are there any other questions?
So I'll just. Oh, anything, I'll let Patrick finish up and then we'll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're at page 8. You know, there are a provision was relocated that extends protections applicable to data processors. These are the entities that are contracted by private entities to manage some of this information. Moving to page 10 of the reprint, this,
I'm sorry, thank you very much.
Yes.
Could you go back and tell me once again, talk to me once again about the problem with B2 at the bottom of page 8? A private entity? Mm-hmm. Clarify that for me just a little bit, please.
yeah, so this is the aim of this protection is that if somebody exercises their right to not have their information, their biometric information disclosed to an entity, it's saying that a business can't essentially discriminate against that person for exercising that choice by charging different prices or rates for goods and services, or by providing a different level or quality of a good or service. But the question is whether that protection would it potentially interfere with some of the loyalty programs that some of the businesses offer to consumers. And so that's what we were discussing about, where there's maybe some concern that the retailers have raised about inclusion of that provision in the bill.
Okay.
Okay.
So on page 10, this is the prohibition on collection of this data unless consent is obtained or disclosure is required. And the amendments add some categories of circumstances in which disclosure is required. For example, to comply with state, federal, local laws, rules, or regulations, to cooperate with law enforcement. There are some exceptions where it's allowed to collect this data without consent. And here we have fraud prevention and security purposes. And when a notice of data collected for this purpose is posted in a notice. So you can collect this information without consent if it's for fraud prevention or security purposes, and if you provide a notice, a conspicuous written notice that this information is being collected at the point of entry. Below there are provisions that have been relocated. This is where the consumer loyalty program language that we've discussed was in the original bill and has been moved. And then on page 11, under this 1440-405, this is the duty to disclose information. That's been relocated, and this has been streamlined. So a person can request that the business provide the categories of biometric data that they're collecting and the purposes for which the private entity is using it. Below this on page 11, this is where that private right of action in the bill is introduced, has been struck, and you'll see that as originally drafted, that the bill would allow a person to get damages of $1,000 or actual damages. So you could get a $1,000 damage for a violation of the act without actually proving, that you have suffered some actual damages, some real monetary cost for the violation.
Let me butt in and suggest this. Since we've got one more on the voting list that we need to vote this morning, why don't we go to Nathan?
I think actually
I think that's pretty much it, Madam Chair. And so
Okay.
just, if everybody, let that percolate, any issues like with Senator Kramer, anybody else, if you got any amendments, give it to Patrick, and then we'll take this up, either this bill or the House bill that's coming over. So anyway, thanks, Madam Chair, for
Okay.
getting it out there.
All right.
So the last bill on the list then for today is Senate Bill 985. This is Senator Hershey's bill related to unemployment insurance violations. So as introduced, the bill only increased criminal penalties for violations of certain unemployment insurance provisions under the Labor and Employment article. As amended and reflected in the reprint before you, it also requires the Secretary of Labor to enter into a memorandum of understanding with any state agency necessary to implement and enforce provisions related to unemployment insurance. It also requires the Secretary to conduct specified mandatory program integrity activities, expand the required contents of an annual report on the administration and operation of the unemployment insurance program, and then finally requires the Secretary to perform a full review of suspicious or potentially improper claims as specified. The bill was heard yesterday.
All right. Senator Augustine.
Thank you. All of this makes a whole lot of sense, but I do have some question about the increasing the jail time from 90 days to 3 years. I mean, it looks to me like further down, an employer, the max would be 1 year. And maybe you can confirm that for me, versus, why would we, I can't see why we would do that, be so punitive on that person when it's a year for an employer who might do something. And so I'm asking that question.
I think what we heard from the Department of Labor, that most of the fraud was occurring from those that were requiring or requesting benefits fraudulently. So not the employer, but not even, maybe not even an employee, but just an individual or somebody that was trying to get into the system and fraudulently make these claims. So I think that's why the penalties were stronger against them than possibly an employer that just may have made a mistake.
I understand that, Senator, but I also know that the individuals who were doing it weren't employees, as far as the other thing that, so this is actually talking about people who would be Marylanders who are employees, not these folks from all over the world who were like trying to rip us off. And so I just feel that it just doesn't, to me, seem that we should be treating those folks in a more punitive posture than the entity itself.
Crooks who are doing it systematically and all the time.
Yeah, that's a different group. That's not this. This is, you know, employees of companies here in the state who, you know, making a mistake. I'm not disagreeing with that. It should be penalty, but I just don't think that it makes sense for it to be more than what an employer who might break this law would get. So I would hope that maybe like a year, which will be more in line with the others. This 3 years just seems to be a bit much.
Parity does not seem unreasonable. Consistency.
That's all I'm saying. I mean, that way at least it's consistent.
Fine. Again, this is a reaction to the legislation we provided last year
Okay.
to increase penalties, so if you want to make it a year for both, that's
Okay,
acceptable.
all right, so,
All in favor of moving it to a year?
yeah, raise your hand if you're in favor of being equal, whether it's the employee.
purposeful on both ends.
Right. Right. Okay, so that's unanimous. Okay. So then on the bill as amended, do we have a motion?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay.
Unanimous.
All right, that's unanimous.
Okay, and that ends our voting session.
All right, and that ends this voting session. We got